Hi there. How are all you folks?
Loud and clear. We're all great.
Okay,
Well, I shouldn't say for everybody else. I can't speak for any other board members. I'll say that right out loud. But I can say that I'm great today.
we are live on Facebook as well now. So, Chris, whenever you say go, I'm going to switch to my my intro screen here.
So it looks like we need Aaron, Bill, and Gary. I haven't seen any of them. Oh, there's Aaron. She just popped on. Hi, Aaron.
Hi.
Ms. Gurman, welcome to our meeting. If you could just turn off your video until your item comes up, that'd be great. Glad you're here. Thank you.
Todd, I have 6 o'clock. So if you want, let's get started. It looks like we don't have Gary or Dr. Random here, so hopefully they will join shortly.
Looks like there's someone named Gary in the participants. I don't know if that's-
There has been a Gary participating at recent meetings. So if the Gary on as an attendee now happens to be Trustee Gary, please raise your hand and I will bring you into the meeting. If not, one note, Mr.
They have their hand up, Todd.
What's that?
Gary has his hand up right now.
Okay, let's see if that's Gary. If Mr. Schubach and Mr. Proctor could both turn off their cameras until their items come up, that'd be great. Thank you. That is Gary. That is Gary, trustee.
There he is. All right. All right. So Todd, do your thing and let's get the meeting going.
Yeah, apparently I don't know the date. February 1, we flipped the calendar. Welcome everyone to the village board meeting of February 1st. Gonna go through just a few basic instructions for those attending as attendees or public members. You are muted, but I can unmute you when the item comes up where public comments will be allowed. And the public comment section is included. You can discuss any item, whether it is listed on the agenda or not. And those comments are limited to 2 minutes per attendee. There's a little raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you click that, it'll show me the order in which people are raising their hand, and I can bring you in to speak. And then there is closed session expected this evening. Just, you know, this meeting that we're in here will remain active, but all the village board members and staff will disappear except for me, and I will kind of go silent. Those going to closed session will then enter a separate meeting that they've received a separate invitation for. But this meeting will remain, and I'll just show you that this screen will be playing during the duration of closed session. So you won't be hearing anything, you won't see any action, you'll just see this screen, but we will then return to open session to conclude the meeting. Okay, now I got my order all screwed up. All right, for board members and our presenters, remain muted if you're able, and then remember to click that button when it's time to participate. And except for board members, please keep your video muted unless you're participating on a particular agenda item. When board discussion occurs, President Zellner will call upon board members to raise their hand like this, physically like that. And then he'll call on you to make a comment, and then all votes will still be taken by roll call. So with that, President Zellner, I'll turn it over to start the meeting.
All right, thank you, Todd. I'm going to call our village board meeting for February 1st, 2021 to order. Roll call, please, Caitlin.
Nyla Fry. Here. Gary Hertzberg.
Here.
Aaron Moran.
Here.
Bill Ranum. Kristen Runge. Here. Phil Willems.
Here.
Chris Zellner.
Here. Thank you, Caitlin. And I'll just move right to you with confirmation of open meeting compliance, public postings, official notices, and online availability.
I can confirm that the draft agenda was published in the Waunakee Tribune on January 28th. The final agenda was posted at all 3 village posting locations on January 28th, and the final packet and agenda were made available online on January 29th.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Caitlin. Next, we have our consent agenda. Would anybody like anything pulled, or I'd look for a motion?
I will move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, motion by Phil Willems. Second by Nyla Fry. Any other comments? Raise your hand, please. Okay, seeing none. Roll call vote, Caitlin.
Nyla Fry.
Yes.
Kristen Runge.
Yes.
Chris Zellner.
Yes.
Phil Willems.
Yes.
Aaron Moran.
Yes.
Gary Hertzberg.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next we have our public comment section for anyone who would like to make a comment on any item, whether it's on the agenda or off the agenda. As Todd mentioned earlier, if you'd like to make a comment to the board, please do so at this time by raising your hand, and he will call you into our meeting.
The other thing I'd note, Chris, is that none of the items I don't believe are listed for public hearing this evening. So there won't be a call for public comments when we arrive at those items. So if you do care to make a comment on an item that's on our agenda, this would be the time to do it. So I have Tom Wilson first. Okay, Tom.
Yeah, this is Tom Wilson. I'm hoping you can hear me. I am a village resident and I work for the town. And I originally wanted to get on just to thank you, the board members, for taking another step and doing the looking at the trail from Castle Creek along 6 Mile Creek to link the Arboretum and Woodland Drive neighborhoods. It's a great area. Kristen and Bill are both still on there, and I lived right behind that area. It'd be beautiful to see it from that side if we can pull it off. And that's what I thought I was going to do, but then I saw a letter in the paper, and I also saw that it was on your agenda later. And I feel sorry that you busy board members have to waste time in dealing with some false and inaccurate statements that were in that letter. One was that this is property is worth $300,000 an acre. No, it's not. It is village land. It's in the open space and parks district in your comprehensive plan, and it's restricted by the DNR. It's not developable at all. Westport did not ask for this. This is a village project, and a great village project. It's been in the court plan since at least 2005. It's the very first new trail mentioned in the 2016 court plan. And the Village Parks Committee recommended unanimously to go through with the engineering on it. I'm kind of getting sick of hearing about conflicts with Kevin. It's getting old. His arrangement works really well for both of us. Saved us time, money, conflict, which saves us both time and money. And we've done a lot of wonderful projects together, and Kevin has been involved in them and came up with them. Westport's involvement here gives us a chance of getting DNR grant funding as a joint project, and probably at least a chance at a good outcome in getting the DNR to allow the village to even proceed here with swapping the land. They don't have to say yes, but having the opportunity to put in this trail really gives us that chance. So there's a tail wagging the dog here. This dog hunts. It'll serve the village residents for years.
Tom, thank you. I have to, for a public comment, we keep it to a certain time. So I appreciate all your comments, and
Yep.
Thank you for making those and making time to come tonight. Okay, next, Todd.
Thanks, Tom. I have Eric Sullivan. Okay, Eric, you're in.
Eric, you're muted at this point.
Hello.
There you go. Go ahead.
I've lived in the village for 28 years, about 3 blocks from Woodland and Mill Road. And I'm very familiar with the proposed path site. And as I walk by it every day on the Woodland bike path, I only have time to address really two key issues with the path proposal: flood liability and the precedent of giving away conservancy land. The proposed 30-foot shoreline floods and is inundated a good bit of the year, so is really unsuitable for a walking path without significant improvement. And there's the rub. If you take ownership of the shore and do nothing, flood damage liability to the current owner's property is negligible, but the land is unfit as a path. If you improve the site, case law says your improvements risk successful claimant legal action for flood damage. It's a catch-22. So here's the deal: is when Heritage Hills is built out, it's going to dump hundreds of thousands of gallons of runoff per rain event into the 6 Mile Creek, creating more flood risk than there already is. And my question is, why would you take on that liability at this juncture? The second issue is creating the precedent of trading conservancy land. My opinion is you should never give up conservancy land for any reason. The owner has been found to be encroaching on that lot to the west of his property, so it's obvious which parcel he wants. Dane County has been buying conservancy. The O'Malley property is probably your best comparable. It's an inundated shoreline on the 6 Mile Creek and went for about $6,200 an acre. The lots across the creek on Woodland are $500,000 an acre. So you got a couple of data points right there. By any measure, the proposed swap parcels are very unequal in value.
Time.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan, for your comments. I appreciate them. I'm sure the board members do as well. Next, we have Todd. ahead.
Robert McPherson. I'm bringing Robert in, and if anybody else does care to make comments on any item on or off the agenda, raise your hand now. Okay, Robert, you're up.
Okay. Hi, Robert McPherson, 1703 Alexandria Court. I'm here speaking tonight about the currently tabled motion about the 1-year affordable housing extension for tax incremental financing district number 2. I have submitted written comments to the board, but I did want them just repeated orally here for the benefit of everybody. I served on the housing task force where we proposed that this is a tool that we should use to promote affordable housing within the village. This has been supported by a positive, not entirely unanimous vote, but mostly unanimous vote from the Community Development Authority. And it has now moved to the board where it looks like it's having some trouble getting through. This is one of the few opportunities that the village is going to have, for who knows how long. This project's been worked on for at least 2 years to get affordable housing within the village. This not only will close tax incremental financing district number 2 a year early based off of initial estimates, but it will also create, as Trustee Runge stated in a previous meeting, it's an investment for the village that will create tax base that otherwise would not exist. So I know that there is still some concern from some of the board members that, that we're giving money away or that we're setting a precedent, but really this is money that is isolated to affordable housing. It gets taxpayer money used more efficiently, closes the district sooner, which is a benefit to everybody, including the school district. And it should be a no-brainer at this point that this is a good move for the village. And I strongly urge a yes vote and I urge you to bring this off the table and move it towards a yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Todd, any others?
We'll just give it a second here. If anybody else care to make a comment as an attendee, please raise hand now.
So one question I have, and I'm not sure because we haven't had this necessarily with public comment, I don't believe at this point, is Todd, we all received an email today. Is that appropriate for those to be read during this section or no?
Well, I'll tell you, and Caitlin can jump in too, or even Brian can offer his opinion. If we receive a written communication and that person asks for it to be read into the record, then we generally do that. If it's information that's requested to be delivered to the board, but they don't indicate that it be read, we deliver them to the board and don't read them.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Any others that wanted to make any comments then?
To be correct, we do read them. We just don't read them out loud at the meeting.
Right.
All right, I don't see any hands up, Chris.
Okay, then we're going to move on from public comments to license and permit. Discuss, take action operator license application for Martha Salazar. Caitlin, are you introducing?
Yep. So the clerk's department approves operator licenses applications based on recommendation from the police chief and consistent with our policy for review of operator license applications. If you remember correctly, last year we updated this ordinance where the clerk's department can now approve those that are recommended for approval. Any that need to be denied, they still require village board action. So included in your packet tonight was a denial of an operator license that was forwarded from the police chief. The police department, this person did request a hearing with the police committee. That hearing was held and they did uphold the decision to deny the operator's license. So I'm looking for the village board to take action on recommending a denial of this operator license.
Okay, Nyla, I believe you're chair of the committee. Any comments you'd want to make in regards to this?
I would like to make motion
To
deny the operator license application for Martha Salazar consistent with the policy for review of operator license.
Okay, motion's been made by Nyla Fry. Do I have a second? Second by Kristen Runge. Do we, any other comments? All right, seeing none, roll call vote, please, Caitlin.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Bill Ranum,
Yes.
Chris Elner,
Yes.
Phil Willems,
Yes.
Erin Moran,
Yes.
Gary Hertzberg,
Yes.
Nyla Fry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so then we're going to be going on to new business. And before I do that, I'm going to recommend that we reorder the agenda and move our tabled item following number 5 in our new business. So before we would go into closed session, I'd like to move our tabled one there. So Brian, do I have to make a motion to move that off a table?
I was just going to add, Chris, that you can move it in the agenda order, but it is still at tabled status. So before you do work on that item, you'd have to have motion to take it off the table.
So I'm making the motion to take it off the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Was that you, Gary?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. So I'm looking to move the table off of tabled status. So any other comments about it? Okay, Caitlin, roll call vote quick.
Gary Hertzberg,
Yes.
Bill Ranum,
Yes.
Erin Moran,
Yes.
Phil Willems,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Nyla Fry,
Yes.
Chris Elner.
Yes.
Item
Todd,
is
do I-
no longer tabled.
Thank you. Todd, do I have to say now to move it to where I want to move it?
I think you've already indicated as such.
Okay, so moving it, do we need to have a motion for that or can we just do it?
You've done it as chair of the meeting.
Perfect. Okay. Then let's move on and say discussion and update regarding COVID-19 pandemic. Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm glad Doc Random is here. Hi, Bill. Thanks for your continuing hard work. I'll let you chime in here in a second, but I will just, Scott Russell wasn't unable to be here, but he did share an email that I can read for all of you. He is urging to keep an eye on ever-changing federal guidelines, especially as it's pertaining to travel. Also, federal CDC guidelines are excluding bandanas as acceptable masks. No change locally, but a heads up. Anyone 65 and older should be contacting primary care physician's office if they have not already been contacted regarding a vaccine. These vaccines are underway in Dane County. Also, may be worth noting that there are a bunch of our village employees that will be eligible for 1B vaccinations that should be starting soon. I already know that many of our emergency services employees and also our public works staff and I believe utility staff are included in one of the 1B categories. So our employees are going through that process now. Bill, what would you like to add, sir?
I will say that most of the people will be notified through their My Chart. So although it's probably more efficient for them to find online through wherever their primaries are, where they should make the contacts, because it's different. That most of the smaller clinics do not have the vaccine. It's being concentrated at the bigger ones because of the refrigeration issue. So it's the numbers that they need to find are generally in their My Charter online at their whichever organization they go to. And I think, I mean, right now the rollout is starting, but obviously it should be a little more efficient. So we're hoping it does.
Bill, I know the 1B category, I've heard numbers that it really covers a really large portion of our population. In fact, how long do you see the 1B categories? What would you guess that that's going to be taking in terms of time?
I'm hoping that it's less than the month. I'm hoping that and what is also happening is that there are some, what do you want to call it, extra doses. So it's possible you'll get contacted in short notice to show up at places because they're trying to use up vaccine that's there. But my belief is that, and hope is that by the end of the month, that it'll open up to pretty much everybody as the supply comes through. So we're really hoping that happens. As far as probably the over 40s will be next. That's what's probably happening next.
Okay, Phil, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Like to say, I got my note on My Chart, as did my wife. We've both gotten our shots. It was very efficient, quick, painless, no reaction. Just like taking a flu shot. Wonderful.
Yeah, we're hoping the home health agencies get to the people that are at home. It's been a process. There's a lot of people and it's a pretty labor intensive thing. So currently, thanks though.
So I'll just pipe in and say that it's important for all people, all residents of Waunakee, all people coming to Waunakee to still respect all the guidelines that are out there. Meaning, if you see a restaurant that looks like it might be at its capacity that it can be at right now, stay away. Don't go there. It's a choice that people have to make, but in protecting all, that's what we need to do. Same thing with wearing our masks, doing our social distancing, all of the things that have been given as guidelines that we've been doing now for months. Just because we have the vaccines here, we need to make sure that we continue following all those recommendations. Our healthcare workers are critical to us, and I know they've been getting the vaccinations. And I still had a relative who is in healthcare that did get COVID after her first vaccination, just from her work environment. It happened, and the whole floor that she works on is where it came in. So it still can happen to anyone, and we need to protect one another. So make sure that you're taking advantage of all the information that's out there and providing safety for yourself and for others. All right, anything else, Todd, with this topic?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rana. Next, we have this updated discussion on diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. Todd?
Couple good things to report. Nyla, our postings are up. The resolutions regarding racism following the George Floyd incident and others, those have been blown up, both the English and Spanish version on large sizes, where there is public access to village buildings. Those are posted at a village hall. While our doors are locked, we did post them facing the outside by our posting area. So that is up. Also, happy Black History Month, or American African History Month. That began today. I was glad to put a post up on our Facebook page recognizing that, pulling a quote from the man who's called out for founding the month, as well as some links to other information that the public might enjoy reviewing and consuming as we all work to learn and grow in our areas of knowledge. Speaking of, I'm busy trying to do that myself. I just want to let the board know about a couple things that I'm doing personally. Starting this Wednesday for 9 weeks, I'm participating in a program put on by the Madison-based Nehemiah Center. It's called Justified Anger, African American History Course and Black History for a New Day. So it's a rather intense discussion, a lot of information shared, and then there's a local group that I'm participating in here in Waunakee. That's sort of a discussion group following the sessions each week. And then I'm even more excited to share that last week, I learned that I was selected as one of only 20 municipal managers in our country to serve on the International City Management Association's Leadership Institute on Race, Equity, and Inclusion. This is a partnership with the Kettering Foundation, and they're working to better identify how systemic or racism is an element in municipal government, which we as municipal managers are representing, and talking about ways that we can work to permanently turn the tide on those issues. The participants are required to submit a capstone project that we each propose. My capstone reads like this. I understand that we're talking about lifetimes of work in front of us, but my capstone project is to lay the groundwork by crafting a diversity, equity, and inclusion engagement strategy to be adopted by the village board. So while we've certainly done bits and pieces and we've tried to jump in sort of with all four, this work after 16 months would bring forward a well-established plan that will take us, sort of send our trajectory into the lifetimes of work for our community. So I'm really excited about that. I'm honored to have been selected. The Community Learning Project, all of you have received the invite, I hope, with a link to indicate your willingness to participate. I want to, as much as an administrator can, strongly urge my bosses to sign up for that and participate. I know some of you already have. And then there's other groups within our community that have already been indicating their willingness to participate. I don't have the list in front of me, but we've already rolled out those invites to leaders within different organizations. Following that process, we're going to roll it out to the community at large, and we already have a waiting list for that. So that's probably going to kick off in March in earnest. And that's what I've got for you today.
Thanks, Todd. Congratulations on being selected. That is pretty cool. For only 20 people for the whole country, that's a great honor that you've been given. So good job with that. Any other board member comments with regards to this topic? Okay, thanks, Todd. Next, we have discuss and take action on food pantry requests for use of the portion of the old library at 710 South Street. Go ahead, Todd.
This one has sprung up really fast. It's kind of exciting opportunity for both the village and the food pantry. So if all my food pantry friends can jump back in with their cameras, and I do believe Natalie is going to take the lead on providing a presentation on behalf of the ecumenical board and the food pantry. But this came about because Cass Punzel, who is the new part-time director, I'm not sure exactly the title, but she has now a staffing role at their center. She just did a touch base with me like 2 weeks ago and said, hey, we should catch up on what's shaking. In that conversation, she talked about some of their space challenges, some of the things they're trying to sort of juke and jive a little bit to make things work. And in that conversation, I asked about whether that our old library might be a potential location for them to succeed and grow, as well as accommodate the village hall's future growth. So Cass talked to her folks with the pantry, and I think they quite like the idea, and they've submitted a letter of interest that's in your packet. And with that, Natalie, I'll turn it over to you. And when you tell me so, I'll bring up the pictures that you sent my way.
Okay.
And I'll let you introduce your team, Natalie.
Yeah, I will. Thank you for letting us come here and talk to you a little bit about the Waunakee Food Pantry and our interest in the lower level of the old library building. Also with me are Cass Punzel, Jennifer Kusha, and Cheryl Gehrman. And we're all here presenting our idea here with the help of Todd, which we really appreciate your kind of coming up with that idea. Just a little bit of background on the Waunakee Food Pantry, because some may not be super familiar, but Waunakee Food Pantry is a program of the Waunakee Ecumenical Board. The food pantry has actually been in operation for 46 years. So we started back in 1974. We've been in only three different locations over those years. For the most part, we've been at St. John's in our early years in what was a large closet, not a lot of space. And from there, we moved to the Lutheran church that was on Woodland Drive. We were there for another 4 years or so after that. And then that was sold to the Baptist church a while back now. And from there, we moved to our current location, which is on South Division Street in the Savannah Manufacturing Building. And we have about 1,000 square feet that we're occupying there. Let's see, I was gonna mention our usage. We have, we've increased our client using the food pantry significantly over the last several years. Just 4 years ago in 2017, we had 870 households visiting us in a year. That was 2,200 individuals. And just this past year, which we hope is an anomaly, but likely would not be going forward. We served 1,100 households in 2020, and that was 3,900 individuals. Mostly our client base is made up, like we've kind of looked at our statistics, and it's typically 1/3 children, 1/3 adults, and another third are seniors and elderly. We're currently open 3 to 4 times a month. We partner with a couple of different, a lot of different groups to get food at the food pantry. We work with Community Action Coalition, and through them, the Department of Human Services. So that's our, the Emergency Food Assistance Program. So we, as part of that partnership, we have to adhere to guidelines that are given to us by the Department of Human Services as far as food safety, security, client confidentiality. We have to, and more recently here, we have to follow protocols as far as how we're delivering our food service to clients, obviously touchless. We also partner with Second Harvest Food Bank, Quick Trip. We work with the Piggly Wiggly, and then like an amazing community that supports the Waunakee Food Pantry. You know, typically all we have to do is get the word out and say, hey, we need, we're out of pancake mix or something of that nature, and we're inundated with pancake mix. So we have a hugely supportive community in addition to the other partners that we work with. And, you know, also need to mention that we have an amazing group of volunteers that work at the food pantry. COVID has brought along some challenges as it relates to our volunteers, but we literally have hundreds of volunteers that have worked over the past several years here with the food pantry, whether they're students who are helping with doing some of the smaller tasks like hospitality or delivering the food to the client's vehicles, to our adults that are managing the food coming in. We have so many different areas that we need volunteers to help with. We had our cleaning people that came just today to help with cleaning at the food pantry. We have people that receive donations. We have thank you notes that need to go out, that kind of thing. This past year has really put some major challenges on the food pantry, and one of them foremost is we've had a significant increase in our clients that are visiting the food pantry. We've had a 77% increase, and then in addition to that, we have to change how we're delivering our food. So where the clients used to come into the food pantry and they would come in, we would do a short intake with them, find out if there were other services that they needed, and then we would have volunteers shop throughout our food pantry with them, and then they'd be out the door. Now we have to do contactless. And so through an evolution since March, we've kind of perfected a process of our food delivery. And so clients give us a pre-order, we pick their orders ahead of time, and then they come on the designated open days and pick up their orders. And then we also deliver, we also have, in addition to non-perishable items, we have refrigerator, we have freezer food, frozen meat items. We have, we typically always have like some dairy, milk, eggs, butter, and then seasonally we like to have fresh produce as well. So those are things that we gather that information from them and give them their pre-order, and they're on their way. So nobody comes into the food pantry any longer. They're driving up. Oh, and Todd, actually, could you put up those pictures? And this would be of the current location. So this is inside the food pantry, and these are our pre-orders that are have been picked, and then clients come on our designated days, as I mentioned, and we have Quick Trip is a big supplier of us. We have a lot of sweets from Quick Trip. And so this is like right at the door going out. So all of this needs to be managed in 1,000 square feet. So because our space is so small, we have to really manage our space well. So that means, you know, if there's a major sale on a particular item, we don't have the luxury of buying a lot of it because we have to manage our space better than that. We can't just have all peanut butter and not have other things available too. This is actually in our office. So the office there is being used for pre-orders right now. So yeah, it just, the small space has really made a major challenge for us. And also the smaller number of volunteers that we are able to have at the food pantry because of the restrictions that are put on us have really, that's part of the reason why we've had to really fine tune our process. So it's just rather restrictive with COVID, the amount of space that we have. We can't offer everything that we would like. We would like to have additional refrigerators and freezers to offer more fresh items, but our current space doesn't allow that. So that was really kind of the what led us down a path to start looking for a larger location. And we have been, you know, just having that on our radar, and there's not a lot available in Waunakee right now. We obviously rent where we are right now, but in speaking with Todd and Cass, making that connection, the lower level of the library was brought up, and it is about 23-ish hundred square feet. So it would be a significant increase in what we currently have. There's also a fantastic storage area that would work really well for us on one side of the space down there. Some of the things that really make this advantageous to us, it really ticks off all the things that we've, when we're, you know, looking for a new space, things that are important to us. There's 0 grade entry, which is super important because we have a lot of food coming in and out of the food pantry. And we can use carts to easily take food in and out with a 0 grade entry. It's got 2 doors, which would be fantastic for receiving and distribution going on at the same time. The driveway and the number of parking spaces would be a significant increase for us as well, and would make the flow of clients coming in for pickup so much better. While we don't anticipate that we will 100% stay in the form of food delivery that we're in right now, We do anticipate having kind of a hybrid situation, which is the same as any work environment. I think most employers are thinking that they're going to go back to some type of a hybrid scenario where some people would work at home, some people would be in the office. Well, we kind of anticipate that being similar to us, and some clients will want to come in and do their own shopping, while others are perfectly happy with having us pick it. And so for that reason, we're kind of looking at having that new hybrid model. And this new location would allow for some space for clients to sit. We could do an intake with the clients, and then there'd be plenty of room for our shelving. We'd also love to have more refrigerator and freezer space as well. And our current location does not allow for that. The other thing that is really advantageous for us in this location would be that it's so centrally located in Waunakee. And we actually have a number of clients that have walked to the food pantry, and being central to the schools and the central part of Waunakee, a lot of clients could walk if they needed to. It would also be a great space for us to have a synergy with the schools and volunteers from the schools coming over easily. It just really feels like a really good fit. And I think I'd love to recommend that we explore this a little bit more. One thing I did want to mention, so I am the current food pantry, or I am the exiting food pantry director, and Cass Punzel is our incoming. And so she also has some great ideas for improvements and changes to, but I think a lot of that would have to take place once we're beyond, the COVID restrictions. And so we have a lot of ideas that we'd like to serve our community even more and better.
Natalie, can I jump in a little bit? Because I want to make sure
Yeah.
we address some board member questions before we get to the rest of our agenda here tonight.
Sure.
Can we do that? And I know in your packet, board members, was the letter, and then the recommended motion, if you do want to go forward, would be basically to direct staff to begin discussing what terms of what it would look like. What would terms of a deal look like for the village and for the food pantry? So with your approval, we would begin that process. I can tell you that we've put together a number of different scenarios for reuse of this building for a village hall function. In all those scenarios, essentially we leave this segment of the lower level unused, except for perhaps some storage that we could have imagined hiding way in that back dungy corner. I think we can probably find other ways to accommodate some of our storage needs. But for the large, I can assure you that our plans sort of left this portion of the old village hall unused. So with that, questions?
I think you meant the old library instead of village hall, but
Yep, sorry.
I'll throw it out to board members first for questions or comments that you may have. Please raise your hand. I'll call on you. Dr. Annam?
I would like to thank Natalie, because I think she's been doing it for like 20 some years. I don't know how long, but it's been a long time. I remember the closet, at St. John's.
That's right.
People wandering around looking for the closet at St. John's. So
Yeah.
otherwise, I think it's a reasonable, and I would move approval in somebody's time.
All right, do you want to make a motion right now first, or do you want to wait?
I'm happy to make the motion that we consider this.
All right, so I'll let you make the motion, and then we can still have a discussion. So I see Kristen Runge's hand came up first, so.
I'll second the motion,
okay,
and
that's
I'll
what
just say that I think this is a great idea.
So we have a motion and a second. So now we can have comments. And Nyla, I saw you had your hand up, so I want to make sure you have that opportunity.
Yeah, I wanted to thank everyone who has worked on the food pantry for a long, long time. I've been around a long time too, not quite as long as the food pantry. In fact, at one time when St. John's was doing a project, we did have the supplies for the food pantry down in the Presbyterian Church, the old building at one time. But I just wanted to tell all of you, thank you. And it sounds like a good plan. It sounds like it would meet your needs. And it would also provide the village an opportunity to do something that's really needed for the food pantry. And I think that's great.
Thank you. I think it would be a great partner opportunity between the village and the food pantry.
Okay, any others? Gary Hertzberg, hand up, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think thanks to Todd and Natalie to work this thing out. It seems to be a no-brainer for me. It's great for the community, so yeah, great idea.
Phil?
I think it'll be a wonderful idea, but if we get this all together, make sure you hide those glazers from Quick Trip from Todd.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, we're gonna stricken that one from the record at the end there, but that's okay. Any other comments from anyone?
Only one, Chris. and
I
that-
do have one, Todd. Actually, I was waiting for the board members, so I'll give it back to you, Todd, in a second. That's cool? Okay, so I want to first thank the four of you for being on here tonight and investing in this food pantry. It's such a great thing for our community. And it's unfortunate that it has to grow, but it's also fortunate that it's growing. That there's kind of a two-edged sword with that. And with the space that we do have available to us right now with that old library, I think this makes a lot of sense to proceed down this path. So I mean, we have a motion and a second already, so I think you're probably going to get a 7-0 vote here. I can't say it for sure, but I think you're probably going to. And my only suggestions with that negotiation, Todd, is that be firm with it. And what I mean by that is make sure the building is secure on all fronts. Since they'll be in the lower level, make sure that upper level is still secure, because that is indeed where we're going to be moving Village Hall more than likely in the not too distant future, hopefully. So it'd be a good partnership to have with both of them being there in the same location, and it might get some people going to Village Hall a little bit more too as a result of that. So I see that as a win-win too. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Anybody else have any comments? All right, I don't see any. Oh, Todd, you go ahead. Sorry, I
Yeah,
forgot
just real
about
quick.
Todd.
The board may recall we were working out terms of a temporary lease for a daycare across the street. As much as it could have worked well, there was too much uncertainty with COVID and clientele. They just didn't get to the point of pulling the trigger. So that ended up not working out. Therefore, the space is all entirely available.
Perfect. Perfect. And so I think our motion is for you to work to pull together a deal for having this happen. I'm sure we'll see that in the near future for us to get that taken care of. So Caitlin, roll call vote, please.
Bill Ranum,
Yes.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Bill Willems,
Yes.
Erin Moran,
Yes.
Gary Hertzberg,
Yes.
Nyla Fry,
Yes.
Kristen Runge.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, guys. And you're welcome to stay and join our meeting for the rest of its entirety.
Thank you all very much.
Have a great night. Thank you. All right, next we have discussion of background and facts on 6 Mile Creek Path. So I had asked Todd, there were some things in the paper and some discussion about this particular path, and some things. I just want to make sure it was clear for everybody what we were trying to accomplish, what we're looking to do with this. And Todd, do you have anything you want to add right away, or Kevin?
Just that you did send me some pictures. If you think those would be appropriate at some point, Chris, let me know and I'll bring them up for you.
Sure, you can pull them up right now if that's okay.
Oh, okay.
So I had an opportunity. I asked the landowner if it was okay for me to go on and take some pictures, check out the area for what it would look like for a path going through there. And then, of course, we have our study that we're doing to see if it even makes sense for us to do this and how we would connect it. So that picture is looking back at Mill Road. So when Kent talks about the issues of how we're going to get down to the path from the road or hub access off it, that's what they're going to have to negotiate to get down into the area where the path would be. Next picture, Todd.
Okay.
So you'll see the across the creek on the opposite side, there could be some potential for us to come through there. There's other lands available for us to go in there, but as you'll see, the topography on that side is very, very steep coming down to the creek, which would make it difficult for us to have any kind of access on that side of the creek. Next picture, Todd. Same picture. For those Game of Thrones people out there, it's kind of like the ice wall right now. That's blocking over there. Same thing with this. Next picture. So you'll see that is basically a shot looking down towards the wooded area that sits where the path couldn't be. So I'm not sure where it'll sit in this area potentially. That's what we're going to be determining, and where we're gonna have to figure out for our engineers what makes sense for this. It does give an opportunity for us to use that land. We did have comments about this as a flood area, potential for water area. That is absolutely true. There's water that comes into this area, and however this would be designed would have to be able to accommodate for that. We wouldn't want to do something in the event the flooding was occurring or this path was not being able to be used. And obviously we'd need to do it in a safe fashion. So there is going to be some wetlands and various areas that Kent will talk about boardwalks. Probably the best example for a boardwalk right now is off of Highway M, where they just completed their boardwalk out there through that marsh area. So if you can picture that, I don't know if this is an area that we would have boardwalk, or if it would be what type of path that is. That again is what that study is talking to us about. As Mr. Wilson indicated earlier, this was in our comp plan. I think he called it a different name than comp plan, but it's in our comp plan for this to be a trail that goes through here. And it gives us an opportunity to make a great connection into, or I should say, connect to the existing path that goes all the way out to Governor Nelson Park, and then all the way into Waunakee, into our conservatory area. The swap of land, and Brian, I know you're on here. One of the things that's been brought up is the values of the land. I believe it's deeded that we can't either sell or take on anything different. It has to be an even swap based on what the DNR has given to us. So we can't profit, nor can we give up additional. Brian, is that correct?
That is correct.
So
I'd mentioned, Chris, that document you're referencing, it's the CORP, the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, that I think we adopted together with the town.
So with that, the value of the land, we have on one border of the land is the Durst property. The other side is the creek, and you saw the bankment on the other side of the creek to come in from that side. And then the other side is the railroad track over by our industrial park. And that industrial park railroad, to get crossing from the railroad, is not really something that we're going to get from the railroad. So to have access to this property for anything other than green space, that's really what the land would be. So from a value perspective, I don't think we can put as great a land value on it as a result of that. But that will be not determined by us. That again, the DNR will determine if we are doing an even swap or not based on the values of those land. So going back, so I see that Sue McDade is on with us tonight. And I think Tom is still in the participants. We looked at doing this years ago, and we couldn't come to an agreement with the landowner at that time. And this was already something that we looked at. That's why it's in that plan. And I think as a board, we looked at it and thought this does make sense, and why we moved forward at our last meeting. But I think it's important for the public to understand we have a lot of questions that still need to be answered, and to get those questions answered to do this, we've taken a step. And that's where Kent and Strand has been hired to make sure that we can do this. Because there's a possibility that they may come back and say, this isn't going to work. It's going to cost, X amount of dollars. That makes it not really feasible. Okay, that it's better for us to know that up front before we would do anything than on the backside. So that's the route we went down last week. All right, so outside of that, so it was planned once, it didn't work. Now we have an opportunity to do it. We're looking at, and that's the road we took last time, is going down to find out the engineering side of it. Kevin, I'm just going to pop over to you. Did I miss anything or is there anything I should really add?
I'll share my screen in case you want to talk about anything particular about the proposed trail. Chris, I think you put it in layman's term very well. I think there was a question about flood and potential liability. You know, Brian's weighed in on that a little bit. We have Mark Schubach from Strand, Kent's on from Strand, and that's really part of the engineering study, really to verify and get it permitted to the DNR. I mean, we're required, you know, to show that it's not going to have any downstream issues, and the fact that somebody would raise a point regarding, you know, the water coming from a new development, and I'll probably point out that from a new development, turning it from a farm field into development probably has less water runoff post development than it did, you know, pre-development from a farmer's field. So we'll explore all that. We'll explore it all with the DNR, and I think you did a good explanation of the DNR requires us to go through the appraisal process to make sure that when we're spending the money that they invested on this property, and we're investing it properly by getting something fair in exchange back from that property owner. So that they have a pretty long drawn out process, but you know, Tom Wilson, I think he's still on. We met with the DNR already, and you know, they walked us through their process. It seems reasonable. I don't expect us to hit any hiccups along the way. It'll just provide some really good documentation that the village and the DNR is getting their money's worth for this project. So if you got detailed questions regarding engineering, you know, I'd probably defer those till we get farther along in the engineering study. We can give you better answers. But if you got some generic questions, you know, I got a couple different people on that probably can help answer those questions.
So just pointing out then, the orange that's on the map right now, that's not necessarily exactly where the path is going to be. That's just for kind of, you know, an area that we're looking at. And then where the green is, that's what we're trying to attach up to onto there, with the orange going to the green and then out. So
yeah, I could just add, Chris, that we did have our kickoff meeting at a staff level to start this project. And kudos to Civic Dade to really think outside of this. And there may be another opportunity to get, because you showed pictures of maybe bringing this trail up here by the railroad tracks. This property right here is owned by Dane County. And so Sue suggested, well, why don't we look at the option of coming in off of the trail, because the trail runs along here on Woodland Drive, through this county land. And that's a real possibility. And we'll explore that as part of the study.
okay, other board members or questions, or Kent, do you have anything you'd like to add at this point? Anything that hasn't been pointed out that maybe you'd want to?
No, not really. You know, I think there's enough out there for discussion, and we covered the floodplains issues and some of the challenges that are involved with this in the other meeting. But you know, certainly willing to take some generic questions if you have them.
Okay, so board members, if you want, I encourage you to go walk this area. If you want to do that, please contact me so I can contact the landowner so you can get permission to go on their land beforehand. But happy to have you go on it. I walked through it, and it's an absolutely great area for this if we can do it, and you will see that when you walk it. Natalie, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, the question I have, I think, is for Brian possibly. Brian, in the event that a land swap is done, can the status of the land be changed at that point from being conservancy or whatever it is to another status?
You mean the land that we would potentially be giving away
Or
as part of the land
swapping?
swap?
The land that we would be swapping, yes.
Well, I mean, in theory, but we also have the ability to deed restrict that land as part of the land swap. In other words, it can only be used for a specific purpose.
Okay, the reason I asked that question, you know, I'm sure all of you know that the floodland, land is determined for appraisals and assessment based on use. And if you have something that's flooding, the value is a lot less than something that could be built on. And so I was just wondering if it could be changed or, you know, what can be done. So that's it.
And I think Nyla, to your question, and Brian's kind of not answering right now, but I think that the DNR is really going to be the ones that determine that value once we go through that.
But wouldn't their value be determined by the, what the land is being used for now and not what it could possibly be used for in the
Well, I think that as part of this process, and Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we're going to have discussions with the DNR about this, and my belief is that their position is going to be whatever land the village gets needs to be used for a conservancy purpose, and then the village may have an interest if it's going to send land away as part of the swap to that new owner to say, look, you can use this land for a certain purpose, but that's going to be it. And all of that will be taken into consideration as we try to determine the values of the different properties.
Okay, that's, I would just want to know how that would be handled. Thank you.
Just to add a little bit to that, what Brian said is that I did get a proposal to do an appraisal of the property, of both properties, you know, the before and after. And the appraiser that was recommended to me was on a list that was provided by the DNR from Cheryl at the DNR. So she gave me the list of appraisers that do this type of appraisals on a routine basis. And so when I made the contact, I think it's, you know, in the neighborhood of like $5,000 to have the appraisal work done on both properties. So that'll be part of, that comes after the engineering study. We need to know what land we want in terms of where this trail can fit. We got to navigate some wetlands, we got to navigate some floodplains, we got to navigate where the bridge goes. There's a lot of work needs to be done before we decide what land we need for the swap.
Dr. Rainham, you had your hand up?
This is just Kevin. The orange and the green don't connect on my screen. Do they? Is that just because it hasn't mapped out that part, or?
Right. We haven't. That green is the existing trail, and so our plan is to get it into the conservancy. And you're right. You know how we make that final connection, I think, is something we can defer to a later date. You know, my goal, short-term goal, at least for the next year, is to figure out how to get that orange line into the conservancy. And then how we take it from there will be step number 2. But at least let's get people so they could at least, you know, walk through, you know, the conservancy and come out over on Mill Road. You know, there's a number of bridges in that conservancy area. You know, they're done by the road, you know, a wonderful job that they did. But you know, as many of you know, and that's a grass trail, you know, that's not ADA compliant. You know, that's something we're going to have to consider on our orange trail of how ADA compliant that's going to be. That's something else that we're going to have to like put together as part of this report.
So right now it'd be a down and back.
No, I think it gets you in, and I think we'd finish the grass trail, at least get you the, you know, at least you could do you know, get you to the grass trail.
Okay, thanks.
I didn't want to complicate it, put a connect them.
Phil, go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, well, I've been here 45 years, and yes, I've seen parts of that area flood for a day or so. So we stay off of it that day that it floods. Our village park floods every once in a while. So we just stay away from it for it that day. I've also explored that land, both sides of the tracks, and believe you me, there is no value at all to it except for conservancy and to look at. And this trail will get us to where we can look at it. You can't access it to build on. If you did build on it, you'd be right next to the railroad tracks. I just see it as a win-win for the village to have the trail and the amenity that the trail would give us. Thank you.
Okay, so the goal for me tonight was really to make sure the community had the background, the facts of the situation, and knowing what our plan is and how we're going about it, the process. And the process is this. It has nothing to do with Westport. Westport didn't ask for this. Westport is not the ones that are behind this. We're not trying to take something from Westport. We're not trying to give something to Westport with this. We're trying to give this to our community members. And we have to go through a process in order for that to be accomplished. So I just thought it was important that we have this discussion, and we're very early in this process, obviously. We have some time that we're going to need to go through until we have the information that we can move forward. So that's really what my goal was for tonight, was just to make sure that information was out there. So thank you for those who are on with it. Mark, are you on here for this particular topic?
Yes, I am. Thanks.
So did you have any comments you wanted to make since?
Well, yeah, I'm here from Strand, so here to answer any questions that may come up. My background is mostly in the floodplain and wetland issues. So if there's any questions that anyone has on those topics, I can speak to that.
So I would assume when we get this report back, you're going to have your name is going to be on that report saying, here's what we think we can do. Is that fair to say?
Very, very likely, yes.
Okay. So, and that's what we're paying them to do for us to make sure we have this all correct on how we go about this. So, all right. Thank you for being here tonight, Kent and Mark. And we're going to move on in our agenda.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Next we have discuss and take action on a request by Lone Silo North LLC and Dalmatian Farms LLC for a 4-lot certified survey map west of County Highway Q and south of Woodland Drive. Is this Kevin?
It is. I guess I could have stayed on. So this is a proposed certified survey map that's been recommended for approval by the Plan Commission and on the Joint Plan Commission. And the recommended motion is to approve the certified survey map subject to all staff comments being addressed to the satisfaction of the village engineer. And I can bring up it's really the west side of Q opposite the Dean Clinic. See if I can bring up any questions?
Board members, questions beforehand or comments with regards to this, or any concerns from any board members in regards to what the Plan Commission's already approved. But all right, I don't really see any. Kevin, do you want to add anything additional?
I'll just bring it up so you can see what you're approving.
Chris?
Yes, Phil.
As I understand it, this is mostly bookkeeping for estate planning, etc. It doesn't, it keeps it all in the family and doesn't affect the development at all. So I would make a motion, we approve the certified survey map subject to all staff comments being addressed to the satisfaction of the village engineer.
Okay, so Phil, very aggressive motion. I appreciate that. Is there any, I just want to make sure if people want the map to come up that they have that opportunity. So Gary, you had your hand up, or do you want to second that?
Second.
Okay, so then there's still comments or questions. Aaron, you have your hand up.
Just a question, just that the memo from utilities, I just want to make sure that they were in approval of this, because it just says that they asked that they be granted prior. So
They will. Yeah, they'll have to sign off as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, call the question. Caitlin, roll call, please.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Bill Willems,
Yes.
Aaron Moran,
Yes.
Gary Hertzberg,
Yes.
Nyla Fry,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Bill Random.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next item we have is the tabled item that we brought off a tabled, and it's discuss and take action on resolution extending tax incremental District 2 for 12 months pursuant to Wisconsin statutory process to provide tax increment payments to affordable housing projects. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And I'll have help with Brian and Kevin here too. But when we met as staff to sort of talk about how to help move the board on the next steps, one thing we certainly felt was the case is that, and as I think maybe Bill brought up last time, is there was sort of a cart and horse and cart situation, and the notion of the Cone-Esri development itself, and then this TIF extension approach got sort of jumbled in together, and it made it a little tricky altogether for us to grapple what we need to deal with. So we laid it out here in sort of a series of questions, and tonight we're addressing the first question, and that's should the village approve the use of affordable housing extension for TID number 2, period. We're not suggesting that the resolution tonight formally connect itself or guarantee anything for Cohen Esri necessarily. What it does is it sets the stage for us to then devote our attention to that matter of negotiation. One thing I want to be sort of honest about is that if not for Cohen Esri project upon us, I speculate that it would have been a mere months before the CDA probably would have been putting forward to the full board a policy and a recommendation for the board to consider using healthy TIF districts at their end of life for this purpose as standard policy. I speculate that's something you would have seen, but we got sort of shoved into it a little faster than perhaps we were completely prepared. So we're suggesting question 1 tonight. And with that, you have sort of a pared down resolution that Brian's completed. That resolution, it's way in the back of your packet, page 95, is relatively straightforward. We got the language, I think it was from the state, wasn't it, Brian?
It was, or it is,
Yeah.
yes.
Being that this isn't a new wheel that we're making here, other communities have made use of this. So also in your packet, with some elements of relation to Cohen Esri, is the memo from Ellers, but that demonstrates really the financial capability of TID2 to undertake this 1 year extension for affordable housing, and how that would then result in impacting TID5. And we're happy to say now today that TID5 is able to stand on its own without the continued support of TID2 as a donor district. So altogether, I see that as good news. And then I had a 1-pager from the league about what this program is all about. So that info is all in the packet. And we're here, Kevin, Brian, Renee, and myself, to help answer questions specific to this first question tonight.
Todd, if I could, or Chris, do you mind if I just real quickly, I think a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. In fact, it's really a question for Brian, because, you know, what I heard from the board at the last board meeting, there was this question of, what if we don't spend the money? You know, what if we don't spend it on Cohen Esri? What do we have the ability to pay it back? Is there time requirements on spending the money? That was a question I felt that there was some uneasiness at the board level in terms of passing it, of what if we decide not to spend this money on that particular project. And so that I wanted Brian to give a chance, if it's okay with you, to answer that question, because I felt that was like one of the questions that was holding back the board on making a decision.
Go ahead, Brian.
So, and Kevin, I actually think you had kind of 2 questions in there. One was, you know, can the money be used for a different project other than Cohen Esri? And to Todd's point, we in fact updated the resolution so that we don't have a specific reference to that project. It still could be used for that project, but the language in the second be it further resolved paragraph on page 95 is a little bit broader now. And so essentially, if the board adopts this resolution, then, you know, the money that would be set aside in 2022, I think from revenue year 2022, 75% of that would have to be used for affordable housing projects, and then 25% just for housing stock for the village. Still could be used for the project on Main Street, but it doesn't have to be used for that project. With respect to, you know, what happens if you have a situation where, okay, now we've, you know, whether it's just from TID2 or maybe you do this with other TIFs in the future, you set aside this money into an account to be used for this purpose. If at some point in time in the future, you decide, let's say that it's been a very successful process, you now have what you believe to be sufficient affordable housing, but you still have a little bit of money left in the bucket. I did speak with a representative of the Department of Revenue for the state of Wisconsin. That additional money would be treated like excess increment for any TIF project, and if you're not going to be use it for the purpose of the affordable housing projects, it would be redispersed to the other taxing jurisdictions based on the percentages that they otherwise would have received it. So I think that answers the question, but if not, I'm certainly willing to answer any follow-ups.
Okay, board members, questions or comments with regards to this? Nyla, go ahead.
Okay, I think timing is everything or nothing. And with this, it seems like it's everything, because Housing Task Force worked for a very long time to determine what the housing needs are in Waunakee. And then the CDA has been working on it. And the reason I think we're fortunate is because it's not as if we have to do a TIF project over 20, 25 years or whatever you can do them for. It will be 1 year's increment. And I just think it's too good almost, because it's a need that we have in the village. It can be done. And the reason they need the money is because basically the village has expectations for the building that I don't think are usual. It will be a great thing for the looks of the building to be as nice as other buildings in the community. We want to be proud of it. But and then the market changed and they didn't get some of the monies they were working for. I just think to meet some of the housing needs in Waunakee, this is a good thing.
Okay, thanks, Nyla. Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I just want to touch base, and Nyla and Brian, or I'm sorry, Kevin might be able to help me with this a little bit. I think there is a little bit of miscommunication has occurred over the course of the past couple of meetings about what it was that led Cohen Esri towards the need to seek the additional parcel adjacent. And I certainly we've looked at the project with careful eyes to make sure that it is of a level that we as a community and the residents who will live there can be really proud of. But from a site-specific situation, the space, literally the space on that lot, the initial lot they wanted, with the density that they desired and the floodplain impact that was known, those conditions themselves made it impossible for that project to exist on that single lot. So I think, and maybe it was some of my fault in the way I conveyed some of the messages, but that was really not as much of an option for Cohen Esri to seek the additional land. I want to get that out there because I think I might have planted that wrongly.
Okay, thank you.
Kristen, go ahead.
And Todd, I'm glad you brought that up because there was a letter in the paper that I was just surprised at how wrong things were in there. The look of the building has nothing to do with this TIF or TID extension. And I don't know how that was interpreted that way. But we have really two decisions here. And I think that it was laid out pretty well at the beginning of the conversation today that had this Cohen Esri project, and that's, does Cohen Esri get the TIF or TID is one consideration. The other is, even if Cohen and Esri had not been doing a project, Todd is absolutely right. This is something that the CDA probably would have brought forward yet again this year if we're going to extend TIF to support affordable housing. You all know my position on it. This is one of the few instruments that a municipality has where they can actually actively foster in a way that puts some money behind the idea of affordable housing. Now, whether or not that's right for our village is something that I think all of us have considered and still have time to consider if we're not comfortable with it too. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Kristen. Bill Ranum?
I'm much happier with them being separated. I think the idea that we're promising to one organization is dangerous to our group. My concern is that not that we bring the TIF money in, but that we're doing it for a specialized case. I mean, I think we have to decide as a group that bringing the money, holding the money is one thing, decided on a project because of the money is a different thing. So I'm glad they're separated.
Thank you. Gary?
Yeah, I'm glad we separated these two issues because in my mind, this has nothing to do with Cohen Esri at all. This is a policy issue for the board. And I think it makes sense. The state approved this. I think it's a good tool to have in our toolbox when we talk about TIFs and affordable housing, so I support this going forward. But it has nothing to do, in my mind, with Cohen Esri. It may, but not now.
Thanks, Gary. Phil, any comments?
No, I like the tool and et cetera, and if we end up not approving the project, it'll just be divided up back where it should have gone if we hadn't extended it, right?
Well, that's an option to the village board in the future.
Aaron?
I agree that I'm glad we're separating it. I don't think we'll see the need decrease for affordable housing in the future. So kind of like Chris, exactly what you just said about the food pantry, like unfortunately it's gonna grow, but fortunately if we, put this tool in our toolkit, I think we'll be in a good position. So.
All right, so I'm just gonna say that I am for what we're gonna vote on tonight, right off the bat. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm for the Cohen Esri project yet. I think that the CDA did make a recommendation, and I think they would have made this recommendation down the line regardless at some point. My issue is we're going to have this pot of money. Do we want to use the pot of money for one specific project? Or do we want to have a pot of money that we may want to put a policy in place to say a project will be eligible for up to, I'll just say 50% of what's available, any singular one project? Because there may be others that are going to come to the table that are going to be looking for this. And if we don't have anything available at that time, then we potentially are going to miss out on another opportunity. So I asked for staff that I really wanted to come back to say, what could the policy look like? So we have this flexibility that, all right, if we have $1 million available, the max any project is going to get is $500,000 based on that, out of that pool of money. And then there's still 500,000 that's still there for if we have some older housing that we have eligibility based on income, that they could use the funds towards those projects as well. Right now, I feel like the Cohen Esri thing, which, whether we support or don't support, is there. But I have a hard time saying I'm going to just give all the funds to that one project when there's other people that may have interest in those funds as well. I do think that we're doing the right thing by having the program to put it out there that we're going to have this for affordable housing. All my entire hesitation last meeting was what I'm talking about right now, was we have to have a policy of how we're going to go about doing this and distributing it into the future. All right, there may be some other TIFs that we have that are much more than $450,000 potentially that we could have coming out of that TIF. And all of a sudden we have a $3 million TIF that we have towards affordable housing. Well, if one developer comes in based on with this and they're going to get all $3 million, I think we should have some controls on some of that money and how we would be distributing it. Just my opinion. That doesn't mean everybody else is going to agree to it. I don't know for sure, Brian, if we can even put a policy like that in place. But I think it's something that we should be discussing. And it's not that I'm trying to stall a project. It's that I think we need to, when we're implementing something new that's relatively new within the state, we should take our time to make sure we implement it properly versus just haphazardly going about it. And I was very disappointed in the newspaper to say that the village board needs to be honest was the title with the community. We are as transparent on this as we possibly can be so people understand we're making a solid, educated decision for the community. The CDA has made a recommendation. They are for this. We've already heard that. Now, the CDA did not give us any guidelines on what we should have in place for how we're going to distribute these funds and what process that should look like. We should have that in place before we move forward with it. And I know that the Cohen Esri project is under some time constraints, and we could still go about this and get this done if that is indeed the way we want to go and we want to provide the funding for them, or maybe half of the funding they're requesting. But we need to make that decision, this decision first, and make sure we're solid with our communication with each other and to the public. And more importantly, to all the developers that may be coming towards us or individuals potentially for these funds. We have to have something in place. And that's, I don't know, Todd, if you found anything with any other communities that have started down this road, do they have a policy that's similar to that or out there?
I've got a handful of samples already that we'll be working through over the next week or two. So I would think that we'll couple some parameter recommendations for the board sort of along with our discussion on Cohen Esri the next couple meetings.
So tonight, what we're really looking at is, do we want to extend TID 2? Do we want to do this right now? Brian, do we risk anything by extending TID 2 and not having a policy in place for how we're going to actually administer the funds after that?
No, there's no question in my mind that you could adopt the resolution tonight and take, quite frankly, you have the flexibility to take as many meetings as you want to come up with policies and standards to decide how you would want to distribute the funds. It's something that you control 100%, and your only limitations are the language in the statutes for how it needs to be used.
So that said, then I view this as that we have three things that we're really are going to need to be decided. We're going to need to decide, do we want to extend the TID 2 first? Second, do we want to give guidance to Cohen Esri? Because they're looking for guidance from us right now on how they're going to proceed with their project. And then the third option is that we need to establish this policy and how we're going to use it moving forward. And it won't be just us, it's going to be other boards that are going to be having these decisions too, out into the future, because we have TIDs that are going to be out in the future that this is going to happen with. And if we're making this decision, are we making a decision that we're going to do this for all TIDs in the future that are healthy, and we're going to look at using it for affordable housing? Is that a decision we're making?
Well, I don't think that's a decision you're making tonight, but it's definitely something for you to consider.
Policy-wise, correct.
Yes, exactly.
Correct. Bill, you got your hand up.
I'm kind of hoping you reverse 3 and 2 there, because I think we have to do
However, yeah,
the decision making and then Cohen, right? I mean, that to me is how it has to go. Instead of, we have to have a process before we make a decision on the project, right? I mean,
yeah, I'm in agreement. I was just putting those three that I think we have those scenarios that we have to look at. But the first one tonight, we can absolutely address. And I'm going to make the motion right now to approve TID 2 being extended for affordable housing.
I'll second.
So then I have a motion and a second by Kristen. Any other comments?
Just to be clear, that's you're adopting the resolution.
Correct.
That's included in your memo.
Correct. Gary, go ahead.
My only question is, let's say that's, $450,000 of increment. Does that mean all of that increment goes towards affordable housing, or does the board have, say well, we want 300,000 to go to this project, and the other, $150,000 will go back to the TIF, district or the.
So the answer to that, and I think I'm correct in saying this, Brian, correct me, but 75% of the funds have to be used towards affordable housing that are available.
Correct. 75%, and then the other 25% have to go for the housing stock. Now, Gary, I think in theory, you could, if you adopt this resolution, what this resolution says is that there's going to be revenue in 2022 from TID 2 that we're going to put into a segregated fund to use for the purposes that Chris just identified. And I'm playing it forward, if the board does essentially what, at least, or maybe at the next board meeting, it sounds like Todd already has some potential policies. You're going to start looking at policies and standards as to how to distribute the money. If at the end of the day, you've distributed some of that funds for the purposes that are identified within the statute, the affordable housing, and then it turns out that you're not going to use the funds for that for whatever reason in the future, then that's the money that would go back. Whatever is left in the segregated account would go then to the other taxing jurisdictions. But that's probably a decision quite a ways down the road for you guys.
All right.
So is it appropriate for me, I see that Jason Valerius has his hand up. Is it appropriate for a consultant of ours to chime in, Brian? Is that okay by me to let him in?
Sure is.
Okay, go ahead, Jason. Todd, can you pull Jason in? Jason, are you there?
I am, thanks.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that when you do this extension, what the law says and what the assumption is set up is that at least 75% of those funds that you collect in that ensuing year are going to be used on affordable housing, and the remaining 25% still need to be used on housing, but it doesn't necessarily need to be affordable housing, but in some way improving the village's housing stock. With that said, if the question was, what if we want to take a portion and return it back to the taxing jurisdictions? It's my understanding, and I think Brian had looked into this a little, but it's my understanding that if you want to give some of the money back and just distribute it out to everyone, that's also still on the table, whether it's all of it or a portion of it. You're not restricted from sort of canceling your action, but the assumption is that once you do this, you're probably going to use it for housing, and at least 75% has to be affordable housing.
Thank you, Jason, for piping in for that. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other comments? Okay, seeing no hands up, I'm going to ask Caitlin, roll call vote, please.
Gary Hertzberg. Say that, Gary Hertzberg.
Yes.
Nyla Fry.
Yes.
Kristen Runge.
Yes.
Bill Random.
Yes.
Chris Zellner.
Yes.
Bill Willems.
Yes.
Aaron Moran.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thanks, everyone. So next we have discuss and take action on development agreement and TIF assistance request for Octopi expansion. Brian, any comments, or Todd, before we would go into closed session with regards to this?
You want to take it, Brian?
Yeah,
right,
and
go ahead.
so, yes, I think we do want to talk about a few things. So this is in your packet, starting on page 49. And there are two agreements that are in the packet. One related to the proposed warehouse expansion across the street from the existing Octopi facility. And then a second agreement for the brewery expansion that would be, essentially immediately adjacent to the existing facility. As Todd has noted in your memo, we've had, I think, a lot of very productive discussions with Octopi. I see that Mr. Proctor is on, as is Isaac. So the agreements that are included in your packet essentially take the standard form of our PAYGO agreements. We have incorporated the terms and conditions as we have discussed in our different closed sessions. And there's one issue that is still outstanding within the document as it exists in your packet, and that is we are going to have a conversation with Village Bond Council. There is language in the agreement regarding appropriation, and the developer is asked to speak with the bond council to see if any changes could be made. I certainly would recommend that any changes that bond council is willing to recommend, that would be something the village board would be supportive. So the motion, the recommended motion in your packet on page 49 is to approve the two agreements subject to final review and approval by the village administrator and village attorney. And that would incorporate any changes that the bond council may recommend to us. And that those are more procedural in nature. It doesn't have to do with, for example, how much money would be provided. There are 2 points, though, that I think Octopi would like to address to you before we go into closed session, so that we can discuss, how the village board feels about the request that they're making on two specific terms. And I guess that's what I would identify. And if you're okay with it, Chris, I think it would be, unless the board or you have questions, it would be appropriate for Octopi to try to address those at this point.
So question, Brian, the challenger, they're going to our bond council.
Yep.
Is who takes care of that expense?
The developer.
Okay. Then yes, they can absolutely present for us for the two other items. So is Isaac presenting or Robert?
I am.
Okay, Robert, go ahead.
Thank you, and I appreciate all the work that staff has put in with us. The two issues we're going to address, I think, are simple. One is very simple. In the agreement, both agreements, they set a start date and a finish date for the projects. So, for example, for the warehouse project, it says that in order for the TIF agreement to continue, it has to be started by April 1st, 2021, and then completed by December 31st, 2022. And it's our feeling that, well, one, we're not going to be able to start by April 1st, 2021. We're not exactly sure for the warehouse when the start date will be, but we're confident it will be done by December 31st, 2022. And one reason we'll become confident of that is once we have it all bidded out and the financing done, we'll make sure that the builder is contractually obligated to complete it by that date. So if we have an issue with the completion date, we'll know that up front. And so we have these kind of start dates, the same for the brewery expansion. It has a start date of April 1st, 2022, and a completion date of December 31st, 2023. So we don't want to get caught where we can complete it on time, we just can't start it on time, you know, and the start date not being as important. So we would like those to be, the start dates to be taken out, as that the completion dates are the actual more important dates. So that's the first one. The second one, and Brian, I went through the Eller's documents today, and I'm not sure I'm reading them exactly correct, but originally the two projects were going to be together. And the problem is that the brewery expansion project is more complicated from a financing and a construction timeline. So that's the one we asked to have the completion date pushed out to December 31st, 2023. Because of that, I believe the Eller projections are based on the total increment with an assessment date of December or January 1st, 2023. And so, you know, so the dates don't line up any for both projects anymore. So in essence, there's going to be less increment, or the increment will be created, will take a little bit more time to be created, because the second project will fall over to the next year. And so what we would request is that the date for closing the TIF, which has been set at 2032, be extended a year to catch the fact that the increment will be created. So as I'm not positive because the numbers weren't run, but as of right now, the increment, it may not even create the increment by that date because of the change in scheduling. And so what we would want is that if the increment underperforms a little bit, to have that extra year, one, to reflect the fact that there'll be the second project increment will start a year later. And second, if it underperforms a little bit, if you'll remember, we're going to put our construction costs will be what they will be, but the village's assessor has to then assess the value, and that's what the increment's going to be created off of. So adding 1 year would kind of address both of those problems. Originally, we were hoping to add multiple years, but you know, Brian and Todd made it clear that was a no-go. But you know, we thought that adding that 1 year, there's a good reason for it. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Brian, can you just clarify for me? He said the village assessor, we don't assess manufacturing, that's the county, correct?
Oh,
Yeah, Robert, I think in this case, actually the state would be assessing
state?
these properties,
Okay.
I believe.
the state would do the brewery, I believe, but I believe you would do the warehouse.
We might do the warehouse.
Yeah,
Okay.
but in either way, it's an assessed value. It's not,
Sure.
It should be close to the construction costs, but it may not be.
Okay. So what are we looking for right now, Brian? Is that something we're going to go?
Well, I think basically, I mean, we can, if you want to have any questions in open session, we can certainly try to answer them. But I think, and Todd, correct me, I think we wanted to give Robert and Isaac an opportunity to address the board tonight on the topics that Robert just addressed, and then it would probably be appropriate to go into closed session so that we can discuss with you at a staff level what your position is on their requested changes.
And we also wanted to do that, Brian, because we had included the draft development agreements as they're currently ready in the packet.
Yep.
So in that, Octopi felt like there were some adjustments. We thought that was appropriate for the public also to be aware of, being that the draft agreements are available.
If I could too, I would also add that my expectation would be that, you know, to the extent that the village board would take action tonight, we would certainly not do it in closed session. We would go in, have a discussion, and then come back out and take any action in open session.
Okay. Board members, any questions for Isaac or Robert? Okay, so I don't see any at this point. Go, Gary put his hand up. Go ahead, Gary.
I'd make a motion to go into closed session.
is that proper right now, Brian? Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question would
read.
be, do you anticipate having any open session discussion on item number 7? And if not, then I think what you would want to do is go into closed session. You'd have to take 2 votes, the closed session for this item related to the agreements. And once roll call vote was done with that, then you would do another motion and roll call vote on item number 7.
All right, so should I read my thing first or have Gary make his motion first?
I think what we've done in the past is have the motion and the second, and then you've read it, and then we voted on it.
Okay, so I've got a motion by Gary and a second by Bill Ranum. So I have motion and second. So then read it, Brian?
Yes.
Okay. The village board may convene in closed session as authorized by Wisconsin statute 19.851E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the investing of public funds or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The village board may reconvene in open session and discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. So we have a motion and a second. Caitlin, roll call vote, please.
Gary Hertzberg,
Yes.
Nyla Fry,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Bill Ranum,
Yes.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Aaron Moran,
Yes.
Phil Willems.
Yes.
Okay, then the next one we have is discuss and take action on administrator review, compensation, and benefit adjustments. So I need a motion to go into closed session for that.
I'll
Motion
move.
by Aaron Moran,
Second.
second by Phil Willems. The village board may convene in closed session as authorized by Wisconsin statute 19.851C for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. The village board may reconvene in open session to discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. So we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Caitlin. Sorry, that was on the second page, so I couldn't find my second page at first. Go ahead.
Kristen Runge, Bill Ranum,
Yes.
Gary Hertzberg,
Yes.
Aaron Moran,
Yes.
Phil Willems,
Yes.
Nyla Fry,
Yes.
Chris Zellner.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, Todd, do you want to give the instructions to let everybody know quick while we go off?
Yeah,
You can all go into our other session, everybody.
Yeah, village board can head on over there. So for the public, the attendees who are still here, congratulations, you made it all the way through the meeting. It was a long one, but we're going to be going to closed session. I'm going to switch to a slide that is going to, well, I'll just do that right now. I'll keep talking while I do. There we go. So I'm going to be leaving this slide up during the course of closed session. I'm going to be muting my camera, my audio. So the next thing that will occur is that we'll pop back in some period of time and then return to open session. So that's where we'll be for a little while. Oh, there you go.
Aaron, you are the big picture in the middle of the screen right now. Look at that. Because you are the person that's in charge. I think Todd gave you that. There's Todd.
I'm the Zoom girl.
You were outstanding with controlling the video and who was all in. All right, so I see for our panelists, I see myself, I see Aaron, I see Bill, I see Kristen, Phil, Nyla. So I think it's just Gary we're missing.
I remember last time he came as an attendee. I'll keep an eye on it.
Looks like we have one attendee still. Jerry Tierney's out there. I wonder if he fell asleep in the last meeting. I forgot to shut down. I'm teasing Jerry if you're out there. So
I can text Gary. You're on mute, Nyla.
I just said I have a light up here that has a hot bulb in it and my face is getting all red. Is he coming?
He didn't pick up his cell phone.
Todd, do you want to email him quick the link again? Maybe they'll get an email. There's always one difficult child.
Julia Hertzberg.
Well, when you have 6 or 7 kids, that's just, there's always one difficult one. There's just no way around it. And then there's always 5 others that are beautiful. And that 6th one is still beautiful.
And how
What
many?
if you're an only child? Does that mean you're always the difficult child? I'm not an only child.
If
You're
an
the
only
favorite and the
child,
least favorite. You're the favorite and least favorite when you're the only.
everything rolls into one.
You want to talk about difficult children? I could tell you about coaching 4th grade basketball.
Do you think Gary would have come back if Aaron was running it?
She might have blocked him from coming back in.
That's might be the whole thing. That's what I meant. Theory.
I have texted him and I've not heard back, and I also emailed him the link. So.
Well, I think we'll just get started. I mean, we can.
He thought we were serious about the Lone Girl igloos.
Oh, that is true. All right, so Todd, we had a motion and a second to come back into open session. Aaron made the motion and Nyla seconded it, and then it was unanimous.
Okay.
So I don't know what happened to Gary, but maybe he lost reception. I don't know. So we'll move on to it. So the first thing we're going to be addressing is to discuss for the octopi, the requests that they had with the before. So do we have a motion from someone?
We do. I move that we approve the brewery expansion project agreement and the Waunakee expansion project agreement, subject to final review and approval by the village administrator and village attorney.
Okay, can I make a friendly addition to it?
Yes.
And we did agree to move the dates, to eliminate the initial start dates and move the dates to 2033 for the completion. Is that okay, Kristen?
Yes.
And I'll just point out that that still closes our district 6 years early than where it was before, which is good for all involved. So that was the motion. So Kristen had the motion. Do we have a second?
I would second.
Okay, Gary has joined us with a telephone.
Yes.
Officially no, but with a telephone. So, okay, so we have a motion by Kristen, a second by Gary Hertzberg. Todd, are you taking the roll call then?
I will. Bill Ranum,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Nyla Fry,
No.
Aaron Moran,
Yes.
Chris Elner,
Yes.
Gary Herzberg,
Yes.
Phil Willems,
Yes.
carried 6-1.
Thank you so much, all. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Isaac, we'll see you later. All right, then next we talked about a review of Todd Schmidt. And Todd, there was quite a bit of discussion, so I'm going to be putting together a highlight of all of that for our next meeting. I'm going to send it out to the board. Basically giving us some feedback to you from your self-evaluation and things that the board members felt that you're just doing amazing things, and some things that we think that, yeah, he can work on this too. That's great for him. So, and bettering you as our village administrator. So based on what your requests were, we are granting the 2% COLA, just like the rest of the staff, and maintaining your 5% deferred compensation.
Thank you. And is that a motion that you want to consider today, or would that be something you want to discuss at a future meeting as well?
We can make that motion. I'll make that motion to do the 2% COLA and the 5% of your deferred compensation. And then it looks like Bill Ranum has the second up there. So
Only clarification would be that's the 2% COLA. Is that retro?
yes, retro to January 1st. Bill, that's good by you too? That change? Okay, good. Okay, Todd, so if you can take our roll call vote, please.
Aaron Moran,
Yes.
Nyla Fry,
Yes.
Phil Willems,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Bill Ranum,
Yes.
Gary Herzberg,
Yes.
and Chris Elner.
Yes. And Todd, we will share all with the public what our comments are for at the next meeting, okay?
Okay.
One more motion.
Adjourn.
Adjourn.
Let's see, who should I give that to?
Bill's
Bill Ranum.
Bill, I heard Bill first.
Okay, I'll give it to Bill Ranum, and the second was
Phil.
Phil. Okay, roll call vote, Todd.
Bill,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Nyla,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes, and I will say good night to all, and we made our meeting less than 3 hours. Which
Yeah, and
is,
I said yes also.
Oh, sorry, Gary. I forgot the phone.
so congratulations to all of you. Everybody have a good night. Get some rest. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Say good night, Gracie.
Night.